order the meeting as soon as you tell me I'm ready to go. All right. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Hartford Selectboard on Tuesday, February 7th, 2023 at 6 p.m. Our first order is the Pledge of Allegiance. Anyone would like to lead us tonight?
I'd be happy to, sir.
All right. Thank you, Lenny.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Lanny, for leading.
Thank you for the honor, sir.
Okay, we have no local liquor control board business and no local cannabis control board business. Order of agenda, I don't think we have any changes. So, Gail?
The item for the local emergency grant
Yep.
needs to be tabled.
That needs to be tabled.
Correct.
Okay, so that's under board reports, motions, and ordinances. Item D, we will table that.
Correct.
Okay. Good. All right, with that being tabled, we will go to public comment. We'll start with people in the room, and then we'll invite people who are joining us by Zoom if you have anything to say. If you'd like to speak, either come up to the microphone in the room or raise your hand on Zoom. You'll have 5 minutes to speak. Please identify yourself and your town or village of residence. Please address the select board as a whole and no personal attacks. So if anyone would like to come up, we'll start with people in the room. Please go ahead. Okay, looks like we have no comment in the room. Do we have any hands up on Zoom?
No hands up at the moment.
Okay, no hands up on Zoom, so that will end our public comment period. We will then do select board comments and announcements. Kim, we'll start with you and go to announcement.
I'd just like to welcome our new department heads, the new police chief and our new director of public works. I look forward to getting to know them a little bit better. Nothing else for me at the moment.
Okay, Dan, do you have any select board comment?
I just want to congratulate the Hartford High School track team, which I think won their first ever state title this past weekend.
They did. Thank you for bringing that up. Mary, any comments?
Ditto what Kim said, and I'd also like to share that, and I think most of you may know this from, I think it was in the newspaper, that Windsor County has sent in all the names that we need to for a local chapter of the NAACP. So, and I think it's going to be located in Hartford.
Great, thank you, Mary. Allie's not here. Rocket on as a panelist. Okay, Rocket, any select board comment?
Yeah, the Wilder School had this great event. It was the Groundhog Day, but in competition, they used their local hedgehog. And so we had, our community was graced with the visits from the Commissioner of Agriculture and from Dan French, Secretary of Education. Just a wonderful community event. So congratulations to all of them. And I echo Kim's welcome to our new department heads. As always, pleasure and honor to serve this town. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Rocket. Lanny?
I have nothing.
And I don't have any comments. So our next item is appointments, reappointments. So the first of two, that's considering the reappointment of Allison Litten to the Sister City Committee for a 3-year term, beginning February 7th, 2023 and ending February 6th, 2026. I don't know if Allison is here.
Yeah.
Oh, if you'd like to come up and say something, feel free to do so.
My name is Allison Litten. I live in Wilder. I've been on the Sister City Committee for 2 years. And it's been a real honor to work with the city of Sonoma. I'm really hoping that as we come out of COVID shutdown, that we're really going to be able to establish the relationship with the schools more strongly. And I know that Joan and Laura have presented to you about the Festival Toute Latitude. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend, which was a real bummer. But I'm really looking forward to solidifying the relationship with the high school here and the high school there so that we can put our students at the forefront of our work with the committee, in addition to some of the business and commerce connections we've made.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments for us? Mary?
I just have a quick question. We were talking about cementing the connections between the high schools. How big is the high school in Sonoma?
Well, it's a little bit tricky. Sonoma is much larger than we are. I don't have the population right on hand. We're exploring a couple of different possibilities. When we received 3 students a few years ago, they were from the Sonoma equivalent of a technical center, but it was very focused on estheticians. And so I don't want to sound like I'm dodging the question, but it's a really hard question to answer just because there are a lot of, it's not exactly the same situation. It doesn't correlate with respect to levels, but I know that the French teacher at the high school has been in touch with one of the high schools in Sonoma.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Do you teach the Rossius method?
I do not.
Okay.
I worked for them for a while, but it's a little too intense for my kindergartners and first graders.
Oh, I could imagine.
They don't
that,
really
for
like
sure.
to be sort of put on spot.
Gotcha. Okay, anything else? I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Mary?
I move the select board reappoint Allison Litten to the Sister City Committee for a 3-year term, beginning February 7th, 2023 and ending February 6th, 2026.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a second from Rocket. Any discussion? Okay, we'll have a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Right.
Aye.
Okay, it looks like it's 6-0 with Ally not present. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Our next appointment is to consider the reappointment of Robin Adair Logan to the Hartford Planning Commission for a 3-year term beginning February 7th, 2023, and ending February 6th, 2026. We're going to table this until after executive session.
But if Robin's on Zoom, she should have a chance to speak.
That's true. Is Robin on Zoom?
Her name is Robin Adair.
Robin Adair?
And I don't see her on there.
Okay, well, we will table that till after executive session. That brings us to the town manager report and significant activity report. So Gail, if there's anything you'd like to highlight?
I do have a few highlights, and then I will take any questions that we have, that you have regarding what we posted. So as Kim mentioned, we are welcoming a new Department of Public Works Director on May 1st, Brian Godsa. I apologize if I mutilated his name. We're very excited for him to join us. Parks and Recreation has 2 big events coming up this weekend. Valentine's Day dance daughter dance on Saturday from 3 to 5 at the Dothan Brook School. And then from 6 to 8, it's the Sun Dance. Also on Saturday, February 11th, we have the 10th annual Ledyard 5K Red Zone. It's a fun run and walk. Registration begins at 9:30 and the race starts at 10:30. So get your running shoes on and get out there and have some fun while the weather's good. Also, yesterday, February 6th, we swore in our new police chief, Gregory Sheldon, and we will be having a welcoming reception for him within the next week or so, and we'll get that out to everybody.
Great.
Questions?
Any questions for Gail, Dan, or Rocket? Look like it. Thank you, Gail.
Perfect.
All right, that brings us to board reports, motions, and ordinances. Our first item is the TIF Annual Report. I believe Lori Hirschfield is here to tell us about that. Welcome, Lori.
Thank you.
So every year about this time, I come before you to give you a little bit of an update of what we've done for the TIF district program for the year. It is actually a requirement by statute that this has to be provided to the select board. And there's no need for you to actually, to make a motion specifically on it beyond just you have received it, you have the information and so forth before you. And then I have to formally submit it to the state with a specific certification form. It is an opportunity, though, also for you to get an update on what's happening, not only in terms of the growth in the grand list for the district, but also what the status is on certain projects. So it is a little bit in that, just to kind of, we're straddling almost 3 years here. We're talking about the grand list year of 2021, which feeds into the fiscal year of 2022. So, and I know we're currently in 2023 and we're, just finished the process for 2024. So this is about a year and a half ago that we're recording all of this documentation on the information. So for your benefit and for the benefit of the public, I just wanted to quickly go over some of those highlights that are in the report. And again, this is from July 1 of 2021 through June 30th of 2022. Just to let you know that I understand that the format itself may be a little bit confusing for folks, but it's based on what was submitted in 2011, or actually was approved in 2011 by the state. And at that time, we had defined specific projects and specific locations within the downtown. And you may, I did attach a map to the plan report. And it was with that map that we were trying to recognize that we have a large area. There were many different areas within the district and many different projects within the district. And we did a bit of color coding, and we also called it by block numbers. So you would notice that block A is, and in the red, that's the Prospect Street area. And that's one of the first projects that is the first project that came out in 2014 that we actually did for implementation.
I'm sorry, where you're talking about the map? Okay.
The map. So that's was a way that we were trying to manage it a little bit. And then of course there's map lot numbers on each of those on the map. So that helps to identify the different areas and the different parcels that we're talking about. One of the other things that we obviously had, it was other development that went on in the downtown that we didn't necessarily anticipate at that time, knew that things could happen, but we didn't have enough information at that time in order for us to be able to project what the development would be, what the growth of that land would be with that redevelopment, and how many tax dollars would be generated from that in order to support the $13 million that we have in our TIF district plan, plus the financing of that. So what we're required to every year is to basically, even though things change a little bit, how you define a project, which public improvements went ahead at what stages. We had anticipated some of them going forward at one time and they ended up happening at another time. We broke things up into phases as required by the state in order to define that. So I know it can be a little bit confusing when looking at the report to say, oh, hey, where are we on this? What street are we talking about? And what private development are we doing? So in the report, I try to outline it from the perspective of block. I can't do a lot to change the narrative description of it at the very top.
Sure.
That's kind of set by the state. Over the years, I've pushed them and they've made slight modifications, but their responsibility to the state review board on this is that they can look at what was proposed and then look at where we are. And every year we have to certify that we're generally consistent with that. There may be slight modifications in it, but we're generally consistent with that. And if there is a substantial change, there's a process. And 2 times we did go forward to the state over the last few years to say, there's been a big change. Circumstances change. We didn't know what was really in the road until we dug it up. You know, things cost a little bit differently. We thought we might be spending more money on water line improvements, but it turns out they weren't as bad as we thought. But the stormwater and the sewer lines were pretty bad. So we spent more there, or we spent a little bit more on our roadways. So that's where the variations might occur between what's identified. And in if you have a color coded one, that one is, you know, in what you're seeing in the green boxes versus the narrative description for what we've accomplished in this fiscal year.
Gotcha.
So with that, I just want to go into the highlights a little bit. And then maybe if you have some questions, certainly we can go over those at that time. So in fiscal year 2022, we had a good growth year in par with where we thought we would be given the circumstances we're in. We're not, you know, we're okay. We had a growth in the grand value of the properties within the municipality on the municipal grand list of 26,209, $26,209,100. And that's since 2011. Okay, that's the value. That's not what we did in that year. That's since 2011. And that's, we're getting close to almost 50% growth in there. A little bit behind where we thought, but I think we're doing okay. Now, there is a slight variation in the education value for the properties because there are some exemptions that the state puts in place. And so that alters what the valuation is of the education fund. So that was just slightly less, but in that instance, we had $29,657,200 change in valuation since 2011. Now, the increased value in our tax revenue, this is tracked in here specifically by what we actually garnered in 2020, in fiscal year 2022. And what I'm reporting here is the $613,924, and that's the dollars that actually went into the TIF fund for the town. That's 75% of the taxes generated within the TIF district from the municipal, and 75% of what was generated for the ed fund within the TIF district. It's those dollars that we use to pay on our debt.
Yeah.
And then some direct costs that we have as well, like, for our legal and so forth, and our bond floats and those kinds of things. We also spent a good amount of money this year on some of our improvements, $715,784 of TIF dollars. And then we also had $52,280, which we're categorizing as non-TIF dollars. Because we're taking advantage of the state's revolving loan fund, we were able to garner a forgiveness on our loan, which basically gets counted as a grant to us. They gave us the money, but we have a forgiveness, so we did not have to pay back that. And that amounted to the $52,280. The report goes into what we have actually received as non-TIF dollars contributions into the TIF district improvements over the course of the year. That's summarized within the report as well. The next step of this typically is that you've received it, and then if it is acceptable or you feel like any of your questions or there are any outstanding questions, you receive it, accept it, and then we go into our certification process. And there was a certification form which was attached to the documents in the attached to the agenda. And there are requisite certifications that the assessor needs to make, and I do make as the second level of that, second tier of that. And then it would be signed off by you, Mike, as the chair.
Okay.
So I'm sort of done with my presentation, and if you have any questions, please let me know.
Questions for Lori? Lynn?
I had two questions, Lori. The NAICS code that states the number of jobs alongside of that. Is there any way to correlate the NAICS code as far as to what job category it was that we had the growth in?
Well, I could go back and do that. The state doesn't require me to do that. I do have a little bit of more detail, but in the information that I'm collecting from the businesses, I don't always get specific enough to go dig it down, whether it's a cashier or something like that.
Is it fair to say most of it's retail?
I'd have to actually go back and look at my numbers on that. I'm sorry, I didn't really drill down that much because it wasn't, and I got so many numbers.
I know that was one of the big things that we were sold on TIF. Yeah, I would like that. We were sold a TIF as being a way to increase jobs in the community. So it'd be interesting to know where that job growth was as a result of TIF. And the other question I guess I have is the housing changes on page 25 of the handout that we have here. Says a market rate housing of 69. However, there were 0 affordable housing.
Okay,
That's a little disturbing to know that we're 69 market rate housing units, but 0, absolutely 0 affordable housing units.
in that 1 year.
Yeah.
So we do know, and it's within the downtown district, we do know that actually we have had in the past quite a number of units. Bridge in Maine was one of the projects that we did have affordable housing. Whether or not they received the definition of affordable housing, it's a certain income range. We do have quite a bit of housing within our downtown that is not just at market rate as new construction. I mean, it's existing housing. But this is just in the one fiscal year and one that was completed, but we have in the past reported that. And we do know that we have projects that may be coming on board over the course of the next year or two.
Do you have a number by chance of units in the downtown area that fall under the affordable housing criteria?
I'd have to actually, I don't want to give that off the top of my head because I do know that I've collected that information. For example, I can just say that we are working, you may be aware of the third lot of development on Prospect Street that'll be coming online next year, hopefully. Maybe it might be in the year after that. It's when it comes online that I report it as being completed. That will have a mix of incomes to it. And that's 42 units there. So at least half of those, or a little bit over half, will be affordable housing, and the others may be market rate, but maybe a little bit less. And we are also having multifamily in there. I mean, more than one single bedroom, you know, or.
Can I ask? Can I ask you to come back to the board if the board is acceptable to it with a ratio of affordable housing units to market rate housing units that we have in the downtown area, or under, I should say, under the TIF aspect? I don't know if anybody else would like those numbers. It'd be interesting to know how many affordable housing units we have compared to the market rate housing. We need to focus on affordable housing units in Hartford. So to be.
I mean, it is a priority
board
for
support
us.
me in
So,
getting those
but,
numbers?
You know,
Is that something you can get for us?
it will. It's not something I have at my fingertips.
Sure.
So
No,
I
no,
would
no,
ask
of
that we
course
have
not.
some time to collect that information.
Yeah.
As we're going through our housing initiatives and putting things forward to you, it's one of the pieces of documentation that I am planning on collecting, but it isn't something that I have on my immediate work program
Yeah.
right now. We know that there are things coming online, and part of what we're trying to understand is what do we have?
Okay, thank you.
Ken?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on the email I sent about project descriptions, and I know it doesn't make sense, like, this is just one example of whether it's the CIP or however, not only the board, but also the public is looking at various projects. There isn't a consistent way to identify them, and I know this isn't something that could just be done, but I guess just conceptually, I wonder if there is, just to use an example, like in the description of stormwater, wastewater improvements, North Main, Courier, Church Streets, and it says anticipate incurring debt fiscal year 23-24. So I'm confused with, like, how do I differentiate that project with phases that have already been done? And I'm thinking about, like, the number of times we answer questions for members of the public who are like, well, wait, you said you were you decided to do improvements on Gate Street and the Hill Fairview Terrace. And we might have authorized the engineering for that project, and we might have engineered the water line, funding for that project. But if there's a way to, like, clearly demark which project is consistently, like, so for example, if it's an engineering project, it might be like E132, and then if it's so that basically throughout the thing we can recognize, members of the public can recognize, oh, that's this project, and it's consistent without mixing them up. Is that too big of an ask?
So what I think might be helpful, and again, this isn't something, if there isn't an urgency here, I would ask that we have time to do that. But I think a visual map might be the easiest way to start to code these things, rather than trying to give them numbers, because then everybody's going to try and figure out what does E1-2 mean. So maybe what we can do over time is consolidate a map that either through some kind of an easy visual way, people can see where we are in the infrastructure improvements that we're doing in the TIF district. I can do that.
Mhm.
And that would not be difficult to do. I could practically rattle it off right now
Right.
verbally of where it is, and people will recognize, oh, well, Gate Street, North Main, South, that's what we just did for the last 3 years.
Right.
You know,
But there's different, I mean, there's all kinds of other, then there's, you know, down below, South Main, North Main, Gate Street, like, I guess to differentiate, what is that project compared to this project?
yeah.
So anyway, whether
So-
it's in the TIF, I don't want you to go to too much trouble for it to be just relating to the TIF district. And I know this is something, I'm just kind of putting it out there. I think that it's a bigger thing than we want to ask staff to do at this time, but it is something that I think would be beneficial not only to any sitting board, but also to the public, recognizing what's what when it comes to infrastructure projects.
So I'm just going to interject.
Sure,
So
absolutely.
I understand what you're saying. So for this particular report, though,
Yeah.
we have a specific format that we have to provide the information to. And I think going forward, when we present projects and or debt projects, awarding contracts, et cetera, we can be more specific of the specific area that it is and designate whether or not it's, you know, part of a TIF project. Is it part of our regular routine? You know, is it under regular public works? Is it under the enterprise funds? I think going forward, we can do a better job doing that, giving a specific explanation. And part of that goes along with the funding source of it, because depending on the funding source will determine what's going to be done. But for this particular report,
Yeah, totally. get
you know,
that.
our hands are tied
Kinda
and
sparked
we
that.
have to make sure that we're doing that correctly. But going forward, we certainly can provide more detail in the memos that we provide, which would also be a resource for residents or anybody else that wants to go and look at the project and see what the specific location of it is, if that's acceptable to everybody.
I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
I think that would be, you know, very helpful. We may
Might be.
very well have a new board like in a month, and it's certainly something, you know, I think having Lori come in and give an overview of the TIF process in the district and how it works would be extremely helpful. I don't want to get too bogged down on anything. My understanding, right, like we can issue TIF district debt till like March 24. Is that right? And how does that work exactly?
Well,
Does that have to be reauthorized at some point?
We are in the process right
process.
now with the legislature. We had a hearing before the House last week,
Yeah.
where we gave testimony, and there's another one tomorrow for the Senate. And so we're in process with both extending the debt period and with extending the period in which we could receive increment from the tax code.
Any more questions? Lanny?
What are the two dates on those currently, as far as incurring debt?
For the debt, we're currently at March 31, 2024, and we're requesting it could be extended to 2026. And then for the increment, we can collect increment currently through 2034, and we're requesting that be extended to 2036 to reflect the delays that we've experienced because of COVID.
Do you know the other towns in the state of Vermont that are in TIF, what their timelines are? Are they online with us? Or are they? I mean, if we're going to be out there in left field and not online with other towns, I don't know if the other towns in the state of Vermont, because of COVID, have received the same kind of hindrances that we have. You know, from the state level?
I know Barry has put forth to the legislature similar. They're actually asking for longer period of time, and they were approved when we were.
Okay, it would make more sense then. So.
Great. Dan, you have a comment or question?
Yes, thank you. I wonder if it might be easier for Lori, if people are acceptable, just have her make a list of the affordable housing that's in town, like the Wentworth properties that were built not too long ago. I think that might be an easier way to sort of look at affordable housing, since the criteria might change over years with the property values. I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know.
I'd still like the ratio of affordable housing to market value.
Specifically in the TIF.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Dave, would you like to, we have a public comment?
I'm David Briggs, White River Junction. I'd like to weigh in on this because there are some practical, fundamental aspects of TIF that I'm aware of. It's a tough thing. It has been a tough thing to get our head around it. And I go back to absolutely square one and a fateful day in the cafe when the citizens launched it. Lori joined us a split second later. And just by comparison, recently I was talking to a very well-regarded city manager in Northern Vermont that's made good use of TIF, and he reported that TIF has been controversial on many levels, and that he was quick to follow up. He says, but the perception around the state is that Hartford has done a good job, and my hat is off to Lori for that because she has been right at the tiller on this thing, which is fraught with other kinds of manipulation. So I was proud but not surprised that we pulled this together. We had to work hard, frankly, to get the board in those early days on board. It was a tough call. So that's the backdrop. I'm still wonderfully impressed with what it's done for Hartford. And I understand the jobs and the housing unit focus, but just the infrastructure that's in place that may not have made it the way it came about is timeless. So I got a couple of practical questions, and I'll just rattle them off, Lori, if you don't mind, and then I'll let you answer them all. Do I understand that there is something on the order of that 13 million, something like 1.6 left to be deployed or used? The second question was, have the increments actually resulted and shared back from the state kept up with our indebtedness? In other words, has it paid the bills? Because early on, people in responsible roles on the board were concerned that we might not make that. And the third question is, have we actually realized more dollars back, and will they remain available to Hartford, or does the state sweep them back at some point out of Hartford? Just a point of interest. That term sweeping back came out of this discussion that I had, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. I know that in the case of the village, for example, Hartford has enjoyed a tremendous windfall. There's another viewpoint of that, and I won't get into that. But the numbers are astounding. And I'll just put it quickly in perspective. I was part of the ownership of that land, and I was part of the advocacy for TIF. In the last year that we owned that land, before it went to the VIII board for approval, we paid $2,500 in taxes to the town of Hartford. And we were anticipating that down the road, it had the potential to produce something in excess of $200,000 a year in taxes to Hartford. And doubters said, oh, that's ridiculous. That'll never happen. We said, well, even if it's 150, it's better than 2,500. Well, you realized, or we realized, something in excess of $525,000 in taxes from that one property. So that's a windfall. And I think that ought to be acknowledged as a point in this whole experience. So those are my questions.
Well, I think the first question was how much was left to be obligated. So there's actually 2 points to that. There's a $1,130,400 that is left for the voters to authorize the expenditure on a particular project improvements. 1.130400. There is also $700,000 of funding that was authorized by the voters for approval of some storm drainage improvements. One of the ones that's listed here that still has to have a debt incurred for it, but we don't have to go back to the voters for it. And that's already dedicated towards a particular project of stormwater coming off of North Main Street, going behind along a bunch of properties between Courier and Gates and Courier and Church, and then outfalling on behind the former firehouse, or Main Street Museum at this point. So those are some of the, that's where we are on that. Your second question, could you repeat that for me?
It said the increments kept up with the bond.
At this current time, yes, they have. Part of why we're requesting an extension of the period is to recognize that the delays that the town has had has also affected the private sector. So we anticipate the development will continue to be completed as anticipated, but the timeline for that has gotten stretched out a little bit longer. So that's why we're asking the legislature to accommodate that as well. And then in your third question was, what about how much do we collect, and is there at any point where that stops being able to be collected? We can't collect it beyond that term of period, whether it's 2034, 2036 gets improved. If it goes, but we do have a period of time after we incur debt where we go through a rectification process with the state. We know what our debt is at that point. It's not going to change. We calculate it out through the life of it and what we will be collecting through whatever our increment end period is, collection period is, and anything over that we will be obligated to give back to the state.
Thank you, Lauren. Any other comments or questions? We do have a motion. If anyone would like to make.
Mr. Chair, I move that the select board accept the fiscal year 2022 TIF Annual Report to the Vermont Economic Progress Council, and the select board chair proceed with signing the certification form.
Second. Sorry,
Okay,
Mary.
we got Manny for a second. Any discussion? Okay, well, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 6-0-1. Thank you, Lauren.
Okay, and it's something for you to sign.
Okay, I'll make sure I get that. Thank you.
And so before Lori runs away, just I'm going to make sure the two follow-up questions that we had was classification of the types of jobs and the growth, and then also affordable to market housing ratio, and specifically in the TIF district.
When I say types of job, just the job sector.
Good.
Is that
Thank you.
correct?
All right. Thank you again, Lori. Our next item is loader replacement. I believe Jeremy Delisle is here to talk to us about that.
Good evening, everyone. Jeremy Delisle, your interim public works director, here to talk about the replacement of our 2008 Caterpillar loader. We put out an RFP. We received 5 bids. We use this loader for all sorts of things, especially in White River. It's depended on more for road sweeping. Our water breaks, occasionally wastewater needs it to load their sludge and stuff downtown. So this was a very, we got into the weeds a lot on this stuff because we're all big Caterpillar fans. We just can't really justify the cost anymore. So I spoke with one of our local contractors who lives in Hartford, and he has switched to JCB equipment. And so we requested a demo. We tried it out with some snow removal, pushing up some sand at the town shed. We were very impressed with it. I'm told that the service department is unbelievable. They'll actually staff their maintenance department during events like Irene for equipment breakdown purchases. So we budgeted $200,000 for the replacement of this loader, $30,000 from Fund 50, $30,000 from Fund 60, and $140,000 from TPW reserves. The cost before the trade is $202,500. After the trade-in, it's $162,500. Life expectancy is between 15 and 20 years. Recommendations to authorize interim public works director Jeremy Delisle to sign the sales agreement to purchase the JCB 437ZX from Alta Equipment for $162,500.
Jeremy, other questions? Okay.
Does the remaining 38,000 just stay in reserve for other purposes?
So
It does, okay. Okay. So no other questions or comments. I'd be happy to entertain a motion. Kim, if you're ready to go.
Sure, I move that the select board authorize interim public works director Jeremy Delisle to sign the sales agreement to purchase a JCB 437ZX from Alta Equipment for $162,500.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we got a second from Mary. Any discussion?
You still have the loader up there? Okay, so it's the one you have. We're just buying it.
Okay. Well, all those in favor say aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Yes.
And Dan says aye. All right. Thank you very much, Jeremy. Our next item is the town hall parking lot lights, phase 1.
So this has been a safety concern. As you can see, obviously the back of the parking lot is completely pitch black right now. It was brought up in one of our safety committees. And it's been a couple of years in the works and we finally got some bids. We put it out to bid, we received 2 bids. Unfortunately, one of the bidders didn't include a price. So he included all the other stuff, just not the cost. So the only complete bid we have is MG Electric. The town has worked with them before. I believe they did the electrical work at Waba. And everything seems to be good. We checked the references. Those all came back favorable. Impact is we recommend bid item number 1, which is specified light product, and adding bid alternate number 1, which alternates the increases the exposed height of the light pole bases to protect against vehicle damage if they pull too close to them or whatever. And so the recommendation is the board approved Jeremy Delisle, interim director of Public Works, to execute a contract with MG Electric LLC for the installation of area lighting in the town hall parking lot, utilizing $40,090 of funds currently dedicated to the project under purchase orders 10306 and 11320 for the installation of the first phase area lighting at town hall.
Any questions for Jeremy?
I'm trying to find that
Yes.
page.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to comment.
What
I
page is it
wanted to
on
make
here?
sure that I responded to Kim. Kim had asked about the funding source. And so the funding source is from encumbered funds from fiscal year 22.
Okay. The motion, the agenda, page 51.
Yeah.
Okay, Lanny?
Yep, make a motion, the board approve Jeremy Delisle, interim director of Public Works, execute a contract with MG Electric LLC, the installation of area lighting in the town hall parking lot utilizing $40,090 of funds currently dedicated to the project under purchase order number 10306 and number 11320 for the installation of the first phase of area lighting at town hall.
I'll second the motion.
Quick comment and
Okay.
discussion, just any idea when it will happen?
I can let you guys know. I don't have that answer. That's, I believe, probably Chris does.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Lanny?
Yeah, question, I just noticed this first phase, what is the second phase?
So in your packet, you'll see a diagram of the lighting. So
Okay,
because of the parking lot and the situation, the cost of everything going up, we and Scott and everybody got on the same page where we
oh, okay. That's
took
it.
the most concerned areas and got those lit
I
up.
got it.
And then later, if we decide we need more, those will be phased out.
I see it. I saw it earlier and I just boggled my, okay, I'm good.
Any more discussion? All right, if not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Dan says aye.
Aye.
Looks like 601. Okay, and so we are tabling the local emergency operations center enhancement grant for another meeting, it looks like. So our next item is the town manager search committee charge. As you know, we are in the process of beginning our search for the town manager. We thought it would be a good idea to at least discuss the idea of creating a committee to advise and assist the select board as we begin our process. So there is some language that was included in the agenda packet. And I know that board member Rocket was working as well on something, and I think he sent out another version with significant overlap. I think there's just a few changes, adding some more duties to the committee. But the basic idea of this, is that we want to get something started. We can certainly change the charge as need be, as circumstances develop. But the basic idea is we would create this town manager search committee, which would help us advise the select board in the search for a new manager, with the note that the ultimate hiring decision is made solely by the board. The way our charge reads, we would have 9 members appointed by the board, including 1 select board member and 1 employee of the town of Hartford. The members of the committee would be residents of Hartford, except the town of Hartford employee could be a non-resident. The board would select a chair, and the town of Hartford employee would be a non-voting member. There's some duties listed there, looking at a draft position description, identifying critical issues the town manager is going to face, reviewing candidate resumes and application materials, conducting interviews, and preparing a list of final candidates and submitting a written report to the select board. The term of the search committee would dissolve after it delivered its final report and the town has entered into an employment agreement with the candidate. And of course, the committee would be bound by all the statutory requirements of the open meeting law, including taking minutes. So this is just something for us to consider so that we can get this going. And so, you know, it is, we're certainly able to change it. Rocket, I know you had also put in a draft. I believe there's the only difference really is a couple more duties for the committee that are actually enumerated. Is that right?
You're right. So I changed the formatting slightly under membership just to make it very clear to isolate the sentence that select board shall designate 1 member of the committee as chair.
Yep.
That makes just slightly different from the actual organization of the composition of the committee itself. And then, yeah, I added a couple extra duties, one of which you'll see item C, which is advertising the job posting for the town manager, giving priority to distribution via the VLCT, Vermont League of Cities and Towns, and other free/cheap means, just to make sure that we try to go with the most cost-effective means first, and then there. But basically, very, very similar to yours, sort of just adding, I think, just a little bit of detail to reviewing resumes as well as reference checks, background checks, doing interviews, but pretty much all the same. Just
yeah. It looks like one of the duties to provide regular updates to the board, and also identifying and implementing ways to receive feedback from the Hartford community.
right.
So I'll open to the board. Kim?
A couple questions. Rick, I'm curious to why you would suggest that the select board designate the committee chair as opposed to the committee.
So question as well.
That's just not standard practice.
I thought that was actually Mike's language. That's my understanding. My
It may have
recollection.
been in there. I would be amenable to striking that.
Yeah.
And have so we may, we may want to someone to keep track of this. I think it would be fine if we struck that and just put in that the committee shall designate a member to be chair.
Okay, and then also, Rocket, it looks like you also changed, and I just got this right before the meeting, so I skimmed through it, but the members of the committee shall be adult legal residents of Hartford, except for the town of Hartford employee. Why did you find it necessary to add the word legal? I'm curious.
Just, I don't know, just adding clarity. I mean, it said, I think previously it just said resident. So I said, well, 3-year-olds are residents of Hartford. And it's more of a technicality than anything. I doubt that we 3-year-olds to this committee. But it's just moving towards clarity.
And I kind of, just for semantics, prefer to use inexpensive to cheap. But, anyway, I mean, I would defer to just be residents of Hartford, and also
I would be fine with just having it residents of Hartford, and in the additional duty C, just having advertising the job posting for a town manager. I don't know if we need to designate that we would give priority to the LCT. That's just something I think they could do. So any thoughts on that, board? Lenny?
How is the board in terms of shall be members of the committee shall be voting members of the town of Hartford or authorized voters within the town of Hartford?
Well, I think
be-
just residents. I don't think we necessarily need someone who's a resident to be a voter. I mean, that's just my personal, opinion.
We've discussed that around, like, someone who might be a resident alien or, have a green card, but that wouldn't be able to vote, but would still be a resident of the town of Hartford.
And so I think that's kind of my point with using legal resident, just kind of avoids that. Also, I mean, there might be people who are interested in civic engagement and activity, but maybe don't want to vote, but legal because, it makes sense.
I think on some of our other charges, we've just said residents of Hartford. The select board certainly is going to make the decision on appointments. But I do think requiring someone to be a voter is sort of a barrier to serving. So I would recommend we change it. We leave it just as residents of Hartford.
I would happily accept that amendment. Makes no difference to me.
And then-
It doesn't make sense that we as a board would be appointing, people illegally, but so we can, for the sake of concision, happy to delete those adjectives.
Yeah, I would leave it just as residents. I do like adding the duty to advertise the job posting. I just wouldn't necessarily, I don't know if we want to make the decision of prioritizing a certain group within the state to do it, although it may end up being VLCT. That would be so on C, I would, basically get rid of the second clause and just have a duty as advertising the job posting for town manager.
I would accept that as well. I would love to see some sort of clause, maybe not designating a specific organization, but maybe just with giving consideration to cost-effective strategies for distribution.
Sorry, Rocky, I think you just cut out on me.
Oh, I'm happy to avoid the language of designating specific organizations, but would still love to see some sort of clause that just asks the committee to give consideration or priority to cost-effective, possibilities or means.
Yep. So what if we said advertising the job posting for the town manager, giving consideration to the most cost-effective means of advertising?
Great.
Yep.
So when we went through this process last time, the board kind of went off the rails a little bit and didn't follow the purchasing policy and procedures for the town. So
Okay.
I think making sure that you maybe include something of following the purchasing policy as far as if you're going to be speaking specifically about cost and procedure, it's really important that the board follows it this
And that
time
the committee knows that.
and that the committee knows it as well.
Okay. So what if we said advertising the job posting to the town manager following the town's purchasing policy or in accordance with the town's purchasing policy?
I think it should be a separate piece because that would come into play even for if there is, whether it's a consultant or an agency that is contracted with, right? Then, so it wouldn't apply to just the advertisement of the position, but it would apply in general. So
Okay.
let's finish if we do number C or letter C as advertising the job posting for the town manager, giving consideration to multiple marketing resources or advertising resources. Just basically, so it's like far and wide.
Yep, I think that would be okay. So giving priority to or
Consideration
of multiple advertising resources. And do we want to say something like and considering
In accordance
the most
with-
cost-effective means or something like that?
I would just say in accordance with the town's purchasing policy.
I think we want to have that, but that may, instead of linking that to the duty of just the advertising, I think it might be a freestanding sort of, it could be even in the initial charge, like where it's, assisting us, just putting a sentence in saying the committee shall adhere to the town purchasing policy.
Can I just make that a bullet I?
Yep, I think that's fine.
So the committee shall adhere to the town's purchasing policy for all expenditures.
Yep. That makes sense, right? They should. Mary?
Yeah, I have a historical question for you, and then I had just a couple of others. Has it been traditional to use 9 members? I'm just interested in the fact that with the fire chief or the police chief, we had 11 members. We have 9 for this. Is there historical reason for the number?
I think we can choose the number, you know, there's some factors like you want to have enough members to make it
Right.
broad enough. One question I had with this is that we have 9 members, including one who's non-voting. So I think we might
Yeah.
want to make it either 10 or 8 to avoid the possibility of a deadlock.
Yeah. Yeah, that was my concern. And then the other thing was, I don't know if like Kim, I looked at this beforehand, so there maybe have already been changes, just for simplicity. The way this started, town manager search committee, there is created, why not just start a town manager search committee shall be responsible for, rather than, I don't know if you're ready, if this was already changed, but just simplify it. And then my last question is, I think this is probably understood, but in the statutory requirements, all meetings will be warned and open to the public, and the minutes of these meetings will be recorded. You're not considering interviews as meetings, or are you?
Those would be.
Just interviews. I just wanted to make sure that the public wouldn't think that they were invited to the interviews. I just, you know.
They weren't invited to the interviews before.
No, I mean, I think it'd be personnel related.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
So is it okay to write the appointed town manager search committee shall be responsible for assisting and advising the select board in the search for a new town manager?
Right.
Okay.
I would be fine with that. When I drafted legislation, we would always, if the legislature didn't want to tackle an issue, we just create a study. There was always something fun about writing there is.
We want to tackle this.
But that's fine. I am fine with that. I would move that we change the membership to 10 members so
I
that
agree.
we have the ability to avoid a deadlock.
I did mention this before, and I just want to go on record for saying as well. I understand the staff member not having voting authority. I feel very strongly that the select board member also should not have voting authority. And if you were to do that, then you would be at 7 for voting, because certainly if you have a voting select board member that potentially could impact votes of other board
Yeah.
members, I don't feel that that's appropriate. So
I think that would make sense. So we could just add in the language there, or we could basically say after that sentence, except for the town of Hartford employee who may be a non-resident, period. The town of Hartford employee and the select board member shall serve as non-voting members. Right, and then we've got 7 voting members. I mean, does that, we choose a number kind of here.
Right.
Remember, we want to like be able to get this, like people on here and appointed and getting.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. I mean,
it's going to depend to some extent on the interest and how many applications we get. But if we change the select board member to a non-voting member, then I think we're good because we would have 7 people. And remember, we can amend this, this is something to put out there to get this going, which basically, lays out some of the things we want the committee to do. Also get it out there so that people can apply. I think it's important that, people get the sense that we're moving forward on this. So I think that would be good if the board's okay with that. Yes, Lynn?
Can we put the charge up here now, because it's been changed so much now that we're off of what we are, so can you?
Can we try to share?
Yeah, Kim, if you can share, that would be fine, and we can just take a look.
Yeah.
This is sort of a mid.
So while
There's-
Kim's doing that, I
Yes,
just
yeah,
want to
we
make
were-
sure that before it is finalized, that Paula in the HR department can review it to make sure that it's within compliance.
Does it make sense for us to basically have within ourselves consensus on a draft? Have Paul take a look at it in our next meeting, we can just finalize it.
Yeah, I think I was hoping we would get this before tonight to be able to look at it. I mean, I don't think it's quite right for us to be sitting here rewriting it. as we said. So I think it would be wise for us to defer to the HR administrator for review before we vote on this. I think
that's.
with what we have for charge, we can, for what we have right now, have her review it and then get back to us. That's a good idea.
Jill?
So I'm sorry if I misspoke. I would like for you to have a document that would be ready to go pending final approval. So once you have it and it's reviewed, and if it's okay, then let's get going on it. If it's not, to make sure that we bring it back and make those revisions at the next meeting, and be prepared to have it done at that point in time. But
Yeah.
so either we
We've
can,
got it up.
And
So
there's
maybe,
also just, there's a hand up from a member of the public.
Okay.
Right, that's what I was gonna say.
let's take a look and then we'll hear from the member of the public.
So here I changed this to read: the appointed town manager search committee shall be responsible for assisting and advising the select board in the search for a new town manager. This second line I did not change. The ultimate hiring decision will be made solely by the select board. And then membership. The committee shall consist of 9 members appointed by the select board, including 1 member of the select board and 1 employee of the town of Hartford. The members of the committee shall be residents of Hartford, except for the town of Hartford employee who may be a non-resident. The town of Hartford employee and the select board member will both serve as non-voting members. The committee shall designate a chair and a vice chair by vote of the members. So that's the modified version.
Okay.
That look okay so far?
It's good
Do you
to
want me to just
me.
keep going like this?
Yeah, if you want to just
Yeah,
go through the
please.
duties, that'd be great.
Duties of the committee shall include: A, reviewing a draft town manager position description and making changes if necessary. B, identifying critical issues that the town manager is likely to encounter over the next 5 years and considering these issues as it assesses candidate qualifications.
Fine with that.
C, advertising the job posting for the town manager, giving consideration to multiple advertising resources. And here's where I'm still in the maybe. So should I
I would,
delete?
yeah. I don't mind giving priority to distribution via Vermont League of Cities and Towns. I'm with you. I don't like free or cheap means.
you'd also be violating a purchasing policy by giving priority to a specific vendor.
Right.
Yeah, that's why I think if you
Oh,
got
okay.
rid of the highlighted language, I think it would be.
So that would be, okay, that's good to know that.
Okay.
I did not know that. Thank you.
D, so we're okay with that, just.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
Rocket, you okay too with it? Providing regular updates on progress to the select board. Identifying and implementing ways to receive feedback from the Hartford community. Reviewing candidate resumes and other application materials. Conducting reference checks, background checks, and interviews of candidates. Take out this and we have a few more.
Would they be doing background checks?
Yeah, background checks.
No.
So it sounds like they could do references and interviews. The background check would be something we would do when we selected
Part of
someone
the
for
hiring.
hire. Okay,
Conducting reference checks and interviews of.
No, I would,
No reference checks.
no reference, so just interviews, reference, and background check would be done once we had identified a candidate.
Conducting interviews of candidates. Thanks.
Yeah.
H, we have our numbers, E, F, G, H, preparing a short list of candidates and submitting a written report of its final recommendations to the select board.
Do you want to get rid of short? I don't know what that would mean. Unless we want to specify a number. of
Final?
finalists.
I was gonna say final.
I would say final, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That sounds good. And the committee shall adhere to the town's purchasing policy for all expenditures, which it needs to do. I think that's a helpful reminder.
do you want to have a specific number of what you want on the list? Because if you're gonna provide a final list, a final list could be 25 people,
It could also only be
20.
one.
25 candidates, so I'm not sure if you want to.
Say three candidates.
Is
Or
that some-
at least two.
Is that something that the committee would decide?
That's something they would decide. I mean, the ultimate decision is ours, but I mean, the idea, if this worked properly, is maybe to identify 2 or 3 candidates they think would be acceptable as town manager, and then they make those recommendations to the board for our review.
Let's say no less than 3 candidates.
Yeah, I hear that, but I just wonder what like the market,
I know.
like what if you can only identify like 1 or 2 people or only one, I mean,
Well, they bring 3 forward and we decide to go from there.
But if-
I don't think we need a quantity of candidates so much as a quality of candidates.
yeah, I mean, I guess they could bring us 25 or they could bring us just 1.
Yeah, they have a charge, but they're still going to be your committee. So if they
Yeah.
say we'd like to bring forth 8 candidates, there's nothing that stops you as a select board from saying, you know what, pare it down to
Pare
4.
it down.
Right.
Okay, so maybe we just prepare a final list, right? And then if they say, hey, we got 25 people, we say, no, give us 3 people or 5. I think that would be fine. We adhere to the purchase, the term, so it basically exists. It basically dissolves once we've entered into an employment
Maybe
agreement.
I should say for all proposed expenditures, like, you're still gonna have to get approval from finance for any proposed
Yeah.
expenditures.
That works.
And can I change this to the term, the town manager search committee, can I say shall be dissolved
Sure.
once the town of Hartford has entered into an employment agreement with candidate? Statutory requirements, committee shall operate in accordance with Vermont law and ordinances and policies of the town of Hartford. All meetings will be warned and open to the public, and the minutes of these meetings will be recorded and posted in accordance with Vermont's open meeting law.
All right, is that a template we can live with? And once we approve it, it would go to Paula essentially and then come back to us?
Can I just ask a question before
Yeah.
that? So I think under A, there's something about a draft, and I'm wondering a draft from whom. You might want to identify that, reviewing the draft town manager position description.
Oh,
That's kind of a big,
well, that is something I think that Rocket's been working on, right?
I think we do have a draft, right, or a draft in progress, and I think it would be there.
Yes, I've submitted a draft to the select board.
You did? When?
You know that like last.
It was last week via email.
So we do have a document that the committee could look at and make changes to as needed.
and do you want any sort of timeline?
That must be what Joe's going for.
A timeline to
Timeline for
institute the committee or get us recommendations?
all along.
Well, my understanding is that this process takes, generally 3 to 6 months. That's what
And I think-
VLCT told me, so,
I think, and I think that's 3 to 6 months adhering to a timeline. So I think it's
Yeah.
important to have a timeline in place, like, for an example, look at just the search we did for the police chief. When we had a timeline in place, it progressed. So
Yeah.
I would encourage a timeline.
Would what's the best way to put that in here?
what's the best way where we can basically say like, the committee shall adhere to a timeline that we provide them, so we don't actually have to provide the timeline this evening?
I would say candidates to be brought forward to the select board no later than. Okay, no later than July. Is that enough time for us to?
That's a long time. Mr. Chair, I'm supportive of your suggestion of just that the timeline would be provided by the select board on formation of the committee.
June? I mean, we got to get past elections.
May?
This takes a
May.
long time,
May, no, May's fine.
Sugarcoat.
I'm fine with May. I just don't want to rush. I don't want to rush the time. It's,
How about if we say, for under duties, the duties of the committee shall be done in a timely manner according to timeline.
No, you got to give them a date. I'm May 1st,
Okay.
Joe?
May 1st,
Okay, any suggestions?
yeah,
Joe?
May 1st, I think. Mr.
The
Major?
problem with setting an arbitrary deadline right now is that we don't even have a committee. I suggest that we go with Mike's suggestion and provide the timeline upon formation of the committee.
Joe?
Joe Major, White River Junction. I think you probably need to do this in chronological order. And the first thing you need to do, in my opinion, is to give a deadline for when you're going to form the committee. Then after that, what's the function of the committee? They're probably going to have to post the job description and things of that nature. So I would dissect what you have here and then give a timeline going back from each thing that you're having to do. First thing above and beyond that is, when are you going to post the warning for the committee, then the selection for the committee, and then when the committee begins their charge, and then so on and so forth.
Thank you, Joe.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Lynn?
I certainly do not disagree with anything Mr. Major said. I do, and I do see a problem within the town as far as volunteerism for committees, though. So I'm not sure.
Not this one.
that,
No.
Not this one?
Not this one.
Okay, so until March 15th for the
We should do
committee
the
to be formed by?
By March 1st.
I think what we should do tonight
March
is set
1st.
a deadline for when the committee shall be formed. And I think that would be fine if it's March 1st or March 15th. For the other areas, I think this is something that can be adaptable or edited at future meetings as the timeline comes into focus. We say the committee has to be formed by March 1st and we don't get any applications.
I know, that's,
Then either we dissolve this or we extend the deadline. So I don't mind us putting a deadline in now for that part. I'd want to hold off on the other parts until we actually get a committee and they're doing stuff,
And-
Joe?
And I agree with that, because there are variables in
Yeah.
that. Variables to when you get candidates, and variables, you may decide that you want a candidate and that candidate pulls out. So there are several variables. So I kind of, and forgive me, I think Lanny said that you may have to put, a temporary thing in case of.
Yeah.
And dot.
So what if after that line, the ultimate hiring decision will be made solely by the select board, would say something like the committee shall be formed or the committee shall be in place by March 1st, 2023?
You're going to want to put it on a meeting date because you're going to have to review everybody's application and appoint them.
Well, that's true.
And I know, so
Yeah.
3/7 is what I had down, but then
That's
there's
what we
discussion,
decided.
I know, there's discussion because you need to decide when that meeting's going to be. And I would recommend that date.
Okay.
what date? I'm sorry.
Well, we have to figure out what, because March 7th is town meeting day, so we haven't decided what our alternate meeting date is going to be instead.
We have a meeting on the 14th.
You can't go that long.
That's true.
I don't think you should do it when you have two new candidates on the board, if that turns out to be that way. We should have that committee chosen under this board.
I agree with that. I think we might as well just keep moving forward and not give ourselves excuses to delay the process longer than we need.
I'd say by the first meeting in March.
Well, the first meeting in March is,
March 7th.
so what can we decide right now when that meeting's going to be? If we're going to do it on the 6th or the 28th? Or
The 6th.
6th. Do I hear any takers for the 6th?
I can do the 6th.
All right, let's put it in for the 6th.
Dan, Rocket, can you meet on March 6th instead of March 7th? Okay.
And so
Maybe
the
our last
meeting will
vote
be the
might-
6th to select your committee. So you'll need to have a deadline of when you want your applications
How about
to
March
you.
3rd?
Do you think that's going to give you enough time to?
Okay. March
Um,
1st.
Yep.
February 28th.
This is your baby, but
And
you want to talk about not being rushed and you want to be able to have ample time to review the applications. And, as Joe Major indicated, you will have a large turnout
Yeah, that's what it sounds
for
like.
this application process.
So what if we keep it open till the 28th?
I think it's a-
That gives us 3 weeks. And then at the next meeting, presumably we will have enough candidates to review applications, right? So we'd have a week to review applications. Then on the meeting of the 6th, we could appoint the committee. 7th is town meeting day.
8th is, yeah, 7th is town meeting day, 8th is organizational day.
Yeah. Does
Yeah,
that make
No,
sense?
the 9th is.
The
9th is
9th is
a-
organizational day, right? So we get 3 weeks of people putting in applications, getting the word out. We have 1 week to review applications. And then the board votes who's gonna be on it.
that's fine.
Does that make sense, Gail?
I was gonna say,
I mean, this can always be
can we say the
changed.
deadline is the 27th, just because that gives
Monday.
staff and getting
Okay,
the
yeah.
applications and blacking them, whatever out,
Can
that would
I-
be helpful.
Make those dates explicit in here when the deadline is for application, okay.
Yeah.
So, deadline for.
Well, just that people have said multiple times that town meeting day is on the 7th. I have that as the 4th. And like
Oh, it's
voting is on the
the voting
7th.
day, town voting day, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, the meeting where everyone gets together, support the
Okay.
the polling day is
All right,
the 7th. Gail?
So while Kim's making those changes, I think the 6th is fantastic. I just want to make sure when we put the board agenda together, that we're going to need to make sure that we set aside sufficient time
Yeah.
for the application process.
Yep.
So unless we have something major that goes along with it outside of the regular consent agenda, I think we should keep that as smaller topics.
Yep.
If we can keep that. in
Primarily
mind.
executive session, what we have to do with the consent agenda. things like that,
Absolutely.
right? Yeah, I think that makes sense.
And
So-
I'll let staff know as well to make sure that we don't have anything.
Dan and Rocket have anything?
What's that?
Do Dan and Rocket have anything?
I think they-
No, this all sounds good to me.
Okay.
Dan?
Dan, any thoughts on this?
You still with us?
Yeah, he's here, he's got thumbs up.
Okay, he's got the thumbs up.
Okay, so the deadline for applications to serve on the committee is February 27, 2023. Applications. will
Like
be
you can say
considered-
appointments will be, yeah, applicants will be considered and appointments made by the board by March 6th or on March 6th,
On March.
On March 6th.
on March 6th.
So that'll be a regular meeting?
It will be a regular meeting, but we're going to keep it
It's gonna basically be
Specific.
this.
very specific, and then the other town business that we're required to do
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
Great
AP
point.
and payroll.
Yeah.
And then I will check with the staff to make sure that we don't have any items that absolutely have to be on there.
Wait, does that look okay? We do have, I think there's 2 hands up
Okay, let's
now.
hear
I'm
from the
gonna
public.
stop sharing, but I can pull it back up if we need to. Let's see, and then we have Michelle and Heidi.
Okay, let's start with Michelle and then we'll hear from Heidi. Michelle?
Hi, everyone. Michelle Boleski from White River Junction. So in the discussion, I heard in the beginning in the charge, somebody wanted to put the word legal in front of resident. And I know this is something that was covered while I was on the charter committee and did a lot of research. So the definition, what's the difference between residency and domicile? Residency is where one chooses to live. Domicile is more permanent and is essentially someone's home base. Once you move into a home and take steps to establish your domicile in one state, that state becomes your tax home. There's also a definition under the Vermont Tax Department defining residency in relation to domicile. So I know that can be confusing for some people when applying, but there is a form for the state of Vermont that describes what domicile means. So I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. And then Heidi?
Hi, Heidi.
Hi, Heidi.
Heidi Duta, White River Junction, Vermont. I just have a clarification question.
Okay.
Could you please clarify where this application is going to be located and make sure that it's very accessible for people?
We will do that. We'll ask that it's posted on the website. And we'll do it.
Where exactly, Michael?
I don't know exactly where it would be on the website, but I don't,
Probably in boards and commissions
Yeah.
vacancies, but we'll definitely ask that staff and board and community members spread the word and share it for sure.
Yeah, we will find out what the exact location of any link to an application would be. And we'll make sure that we include that in any outreach that we do when we make announcements that the committee is being created.
And
And Paula?
hard copy is always available in the town manager's office.
Yep, and we'll make that clear as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Heidi.
If we want to put it on a listserv, just a link to wherever it's at. That's,
Well,
if you do it on a listserv, yeah.
yeah, we'll do that. So the question, I guess, is, are we taking an informal consensus, having Paul take a look and then just doing a ratification vote next meeting? Or does that make sense? Because when's our next meeting, We don't want to lose a week, Or do we just,
Can we vote?
do we just vote it out? And if there are any edits that come from the HR office, we can make them later? Because we don't want to lose time, we want this.
Mr. Chair, we could add a sort of a severability clause, just to make it easy.
I'm sorry?
Do you have a cursory read on it as far
Is
as
there
looking?
anything in here that would
I
strike
have
you
not
as?
seen the document. I've only seen what's been
Oh.
going up here. And so there's nothing that alarms me that I haven't already mentioned,
Okay.
but as you know what it's like, you just.
Yeah,
see
That's
something
that's
up
why I
there.
wanted it up on the
So we
board.
could just
so.
say, like approve pending the HR director's.
Yep, and then if it's approved
There you go.
tomorrow, we put it out, right? I mean, okay, I think that's good. So we could make a motion to approve pending review by the HR director. Is that okay with everybody?
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I move that the select board approve the charge for the town manager search committee as amended, pending the acceptance of the director of HR.
Second that motion.
second from Mary. Okay, any discussion on this? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Good work on that one.
Michelle, do you still have your hand up on purpose? Oh, wait, no, Dan has his hand up.
Dan?
I was just gonna say, yeah, Michelle has her hand up and Heidi are both on the panel, so we might want to remove them since they're not speaking anymore, unless they have further questions.
Thank you, Nick. And I'm gonna send this to everyone right now.
Okay, great. And so we have one more item for our board reports, motions and ordinances. I suggest we take a vote on this. We take a 5-minute break, come back for commission reports, consent agenda, and executive session. So this is the warning for the annual town meeting. If you saw, there's a little typo in there. And so I guess our idea here is just to, confirm that the word 7 in item 3 of the warning is a typo.
What was, hang on, I'm trying to get there.
Yep. So page 95, this has to do with the advanced transit sum. It says, shall the town appropriate the sum of $84,700? So the 7 is an inadvertent typo, and we just need to acknowledge that it is a typo. And then it's in there. And then subsequent, publication of the warning, once we confirm the typo, will be corrected.
So moved.
Have a second?
I'll second the motion.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, great. All right, so we're gonna take a 5-minute break. We're gonna come back, do commission reports, consent agenda, and executive session.
Don't forget to sign. You have to sign.
Yes, go please make sure you sign Lori's document.
we've still got Dan and we've still got Rocket, I believe.
That's good.
Okay, are we on, Jam? Okay, all right, everyone, we are back from our break. We'll start with commission reports. Lanny, let's start with you.
I have nothing.
Nothing. Rocket, do you have any commission reports? Is Rocket back on?
Yeah, Mike, sorry, I was just joining as a panelist.
That's okay. Do you have any commission reports?
Just town and school meeting committee. Things are moving along as planned. Ryan Skelza is doing an amazing job leading the group, so things look good.
Okay, great. Mary?
Yeah, Parks and Rec, most of what I would say is in the significant activity report. There's about 6 weeks left for the skating season. They've actually been discussing using, this was interesting in light of the very, very cold temperatures previous, but with some improvements, they might have the Barwood Arena for shelter in hot weather. I think Gail mentioned the mother, son, father, daughter dance on February 11th at Dothan Brook School, and the ice fishing derby had to be postponed from February 4th because of the severe cold temperatures to February 18th. That's Parks and Rec. And Hartford Conservation Commission. A grant was applied for and accepted on behalf of the tree board and Hartford Conservation Commission to work at Lyman Park to mow down the Japanese knotweed and keep its growth checked and to plant trees there. Regarding the timber harvest at the town forest, they have finished cutting and hauling the logs, and thanks are in line for dedicated work by Matt Osborne, Forester AJ Follinsby, and Matt Dragon's team from HACT. Who have done so much to help the process and will continue to assist with cleanup and restoration of the trails, along with members of the Mountain Bike Association. Those trails will remain closed until cleanup is accomplished. And upcoming events may include the Salamander Meander, Vernal Pool Walk, and there's a definite date for a birding walk with Ted Levin, Hartford Conservation Commission member, most likely May 20th at 6 a.m. Angie Emerson is departing the Upper Valley soon and has been a valuable Hartford Conservation Commission member. So this will result in a vacancy for a new member. Happy trails, Angie, and our thanks to your work for many years.
Thank you, Mary. Dan, do you have any commission reports?
Nothing that hasn't already been shared. Thank you.
Okay, Kim, anything?
Design Review Committee met last Thursday and they reviewed changes that cover home repairs proposed for the exterior of their building. And that was after they come back a second time, and after some revisions, they've been moved forward to the Planning Commission. And then Planning Commission met last night to review an application for a subdivision for which there was a lot of discussion and community input. Ultimately, one member was absent, so they came down to a 3-3 tie to whether or not to approve the application. So ultimately, they reopened the public hearing and continued it to March 13th.
For what project is that?
It's subdivision up on Stacy Lane.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't have any commission reports, so consent agenda, I will take a motion. Anyone would like to?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to approve payroll ending 2/4/2023, approve meeting minutes of 1/24/2023, approve AP manifest of 2/3/2023 and 2/7/2023, approve select board meetings.
March 6th.
Set date to March 6th. Yep. And then then approve 3/9/2023 organizational meeting and 3/21/2023 regular meeting.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
601. I will take a motion to go into executive session.
I move that in accordance with Vermont's open meeting law 1 DSA section 313, I move that the select board enter into executive session to discuss the appointment or employment or evaluation of a public officer or employee.
Second?
We have a second from Kim. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I,
We're going to go into executive session.
Rocket and Banner sent you a link.
I said aye.
We'll see
Thank
you.
you.
Bye, thank you both. Thank you, Jim. Thank you. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we come out of executive session and enter open session.
I second the motion.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we are back in open session.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move that the select board does not reappoint Robin Adair Logan to the Planning Commission because I believe it is not in the best interest of the town of Hartford.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a second from Mary. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, 601. I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, so I have to actually do this.
I'll second, Mary.
Oh, sure. I'll second the motion.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
All right.
So everything was Lanny, I second, you, I second. Lastly, adjourned by Lanny, I second.